Welcome everyone to the presidential panel. Thank you to our four presidents for coming and joining us today. And we will have Kim Long as our moderator. So Kim, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Kathy. Welcome to the 2020 presidential panel. I am Dr. Kim Long, president of Adult Learners Now. We partner with higher ed institutions to create innovative virtual programs to grow student populations. I'm especially honored to have been invited to moderate the illustrious presidential panel once again. Our business panelists in the last session offered some tangible things institutions can all do to improve connecting with corporate partnership. Now it's time to get a different point of view. If nothing else, the quick pivot to online teaching and learning in response to the COVID-19 pandemic has taught institutions the importance of being nimble and quick. Today, we have four of the most innovative HBCU presidents joining us to answer your questions from their perspectives. Joining us this morning are Dr. Hakim Lucas, President of Virginia Union University, Dr. Aminta Breaux, and correct me if I'm mispronouncing your name, Dr. Breaux.
You did a beautiful job. Thank you.
Oh, great. President of Bowie State University, Dr. Roslyn Artis. Hi, Dr. Artis.
Hello.
President of college. We're in the same state. Dr. Makola, Abdullah, President of Virginia State University. And what I'll do at this time is I will ask each president to take 1 to 2 minutes for a personal introduction, beginning with Dr. Lucas. You will get a sign at 30 seconds so you can wrap up. But Dr. Lucas, would you please start with the personal introductions?
Good afternoon, everyone. Very excited to be a part of the panel and the discussion. Of course, HBCUgrow and Kathy and all of her colleagues are just amazing people in the mission that they're trying to achieve as they attempt to bring greater conversation, continuity, synergy between the business community and specifically in this case, higher education. You said it before in your introduction, but my colleagues on the panel are just wonderful people and leaders. Innovation, I believe, is a spirit and an approach of how we continue to allow hope and how we continue to allow our intellectual capital to be transferred into business practices. And these three colleagues of mine, plus others that may be watching or that you know about, are leading in the space every day. I'm excited to be here to talk and to share and look forward to the dialogue.
Okay, let's move to Dr. Breaux, President of Bowie State University.
Good morning, everyone. I'm so pleased to be able to be with you today, and thank you to the organizers of the program. Yes, these are ever-changing, rapidly changing times with the advent of COVID-19, and so I send my best wishes to everyone viewing today and those who will view in the future as we all come out of this. Bowie State University is the first HBCU state of Maryland. For those of you who may not be familiar with our history, we were founded in 1865. Today we have 22 undergraduate majors, 35 graduate programs, and 14 certification programs. One of the fastest growing programs and initiatives on our campus is entrepreneurship, and it continues to grow because there's such a great need across this country, around the world, for, as you said earlier, being more nimble, being more agile, and ensuring that our students at Bowie State University are graduating with an entrepreneurial mindset. As for me, I've been in higher education, let's just say over 30 years. We'll leave it at that. I've served on 4 other campuses in both public and private universities, served on a number of boards. I'm currently serving on the Board of Advisors for the White House Initiative for Historically Black Colleges and Universities, and I'm a member of the Governor's P20 Council. And I'll stop there. And again, thank you. And it's an honor to serve on this panel with my esteemed colleagues, sending out a shout out to each and every one of you as you go through the days ahead. It's good to see you all.
Thank you, Dr. Breaux. Dr. Roslyn Artis, president of Benedict College, you're on.
Good morning, colleagues. It's a pleasure to see you. I know social distancing has resulted in us not being able to join on the beautiful campus of Virginia Union. I had so look forward to visiting you again, Dr. Lucas. We'll certainly take a rain check, however. We'll be back again soon. To my other colleagues, it's a pleasure to see you, Aminta and Makola. Looking forward to this dialogue today. Critically important topics, our partnerships with the business community and our ability to demonstrate the very best in terms of productivity. I often refer to HBCUs as minority suppliers. We are not manufacturing widgets, rather we are in the business of developing and manufacturing human potential. And so I think we have a great deal to add to this conversation and look forward to engaging around a conversation in that crosshair or intersection of business and education. So thank you for having me today.
Thank you, Dr. Artis. Dr. Abdullah, president of Virginia State University, we welcome you. Okay, well, let's move on. We'll welcome our panelists again. Just a reminder to our virtual attendees, type your questions in the question and answer box in the control bar, which may be at the top or bottom of your screen. Mouse over to expand and see the questions and answers. We will get to as many as we can in the hour that we have. Let's get started by having the panelists take a minute or two to tell us more about their schools, and we'll start with our questions. Dr. Abdullah, who's not present. So Dr. Breaux, what is the biggest challenge your university faces when building partnerships with businesses?
Do you see me?
Kim, Dr.
Oh,
Abdullah.
I'm sorry.
I see you.
Pardon me?
I'm
Can you
also
see me?
wondering, can you see me? I cannot see my own image, and I'm wondering if the camera is working okay. This is Aminta Breaux.
We see you, Dr.
Yes, we see you.
All right.
Okay, Dr. Abdullah, then I'll go back to you. What is the biggest challenge your university faces when building partnerships with businesses?
I think the biggest challenge, and I'm gonna speak to the present and not necessarily to the past. I think a couple of months ago was an entirely different world than it is today. Today we're walking through a challenge that many of us didn't see coming and are having to adjust really to move forward. And so I think our biggest challenge going forward is going to be how do we continue to present the value proposition of our institutions to let people know, as Dr. Artis said so eloquently, that we deal in human potential. I like to say we deal in dreams. We deal in dreams coming true. How do we make sure that we partner with people who understand the value of making sure that young people's dreams at Virginia State, at Bowie State, at Virginia Union, at Benedict College, invest in those dreams so that young people can move forward. I know that just recently, in some of the conversations that we would have centered around higher education, there were conversations about whether higher education was worth it at all. I think that conversation is clearly beginning to change as we understand the power of technology and how it's going to be critically important that all of our young people and young at heart people get trained in various levels of technology to be able to conduct the business of today. I think those questions are going to start to move away. And then it will be important for us to partner with the right people to make sure that we can continue to change the world.
Thank you, Dr. Abdullah. Is there anyone else who would like to respond to that question?
Well, I would agree wholeheartedly. This is Aminta Breaux. I would agree wholeheartedly with President Abdullah that because there is so much change, especially today, I think higher education and our HBCUs are being challenged to continue to demonstrate value. That comes back to us for some of that in ensuring that we're helping others to see our brand and the value that we bring. But it also is incumbent upon our companies and businesses to recognize the value that you heard me say we're the first HBCU in the state of Maryland. We go back to 1865. We've been here for a very long time producing outstanding, talented individuals. And the statistics show that while we're 3% of all universities in the country, we produce about 20% of the African-American graduates and 25% of the graduates going into the STEM fields. So when we talk about the topic of intersection, I think it's incumbent upon businesses and organizations to recognize our value and what we have always done and contributed to the fabric of the workplaces throughout history since we've been in existence. But also we as HBCUs and higher ed have to continually develop that knowledge content and push out the message of who we are today and the value that we bring. And as we come out of this crisis that we're in, I think more and more we're going to be faced with those questions about, well, what is the value? Because we have gone to remote teaching. We've gone to that place, but I would contend that our HBCUs especially are known for the way that we produce our graduates in a nurturing environment where they graduate with self-confidence, self-efficacy, and they can stand beside the best of the best, and they hold their own.
Thank you, Dr. Breaux. Let's move to our next question. Dr. Lucas, I'll direct this to you. How can a business get involved with your university in a way that helps both entities?
I think that what our colleagues mentioned earlier just now is so important, right? That the COVID-19 has helped, I believe, HBCUs in particular, to accelerate the realization that we too are businesses and maybe minority small businesses. And so the fact that we had to find ways to develop strategies for business continuity as we all entered into emergency response phases and going through now business continuity into long-range planning, the opportunity for businesses and higher education, specifically in its historically black college and university form, is, I think, now more than ever at the center of what we know is innovation and in some senses research and development. I think for me, the first thing that I would love to do, and I'm sure I'd be interested in hearing my colleagues say, a business can innovate with me in finding ways in which we can allow our students to, one, access opportunities that other universities may have positioned their students for. So for example, one, how do we do internships today when technology is pretty much at the center of our engagement? How do we ensure that students are being placed in jobs that allow them to demonstrate their leadership potential? On the other sides of the business, we're looking at business development. So I do not believe that campus-based learning has eroded with a move to virtual-based learning, but we can look at our campuses as little communities, particularly, I think Dr. Artis spoke about it, and how our campuses and our students are dealing in human capital exchanges, but also in how we create, if you will, through various food vendors, other public-private partnerships. When we look at what we consider to be auxiliaries as far as bookstores and other ways we do business, how do we begin to cultivate our campuses into these ecosystems that allow, if you will, minority and small businesses to participate in very different ways to generate economies in the communities that we serve. COVID-19 also accelerated an understanding of the various issues that we face, not just as a campus, but the communities that we serve at large. So we do stay-at-home orders, stay-at-place. Issues like food deserts are amplified. And so business communities, how do we deal with that? Health and wellness, these are also amplified, particularly in Richmond and in the North Side where Virginia Union is, access to affordable health care is limited. And when you tell people who live in poverty-stricken neighborhoods that they can't go anywhere, what does that mean? Child care, and how do we partner to take care of these needs, particularly when you say and identify essential workers are usually the lowest paid and they don't have the support systems that they need. So in summary, COVID-19, while it has triggered a certain level of emergency response, it has allowed us to demonstrate leadership agility. It has forced us to accelerate our understanding of the power and the need for technology and to rethink our business, and particularly HBCUs. But the innovation opportunities and the ways in which the business sector can join with us as hybrids. And that is the number one thing I want to say, that HBCUs, higher education, we're businesses also. And we're in the business of creating, if you will, social capital. And so how we begin to solve the problems of our communities, of our campuses in a way that generates insights is what I believe is the call of the day. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lucas, for that forward-thinking response. Dr. Artis, here's one for you.
Okay.
What one thing could businesses do to ensure true equity in hiring and training new employees?
That's a great question, Dr. Long. Thank you for directing it to me. I think we talk about diversity and inclusion. I'd like to strike the word diversity from the conversation and focus really on the inclusion point perspective. The reality is you can hire a diverse population. If you know where to look, and it's not that difficult, you can hire women, you can hire minorities, you can hire Native Americans, you can hire African Americans. But to truly engage them in meaningful ways such that they will persist and progress within the organization, that's what inclusion means. And so to think about if you're sincere about inclusion, beginning a relationship with the institution as early as that student's freshman year, whether it's through comprehensive partnerships, which for us typically include guest lectures, company days on campus, internship opportunities for students in the summer, shadowing opportunities. I call them field trips, but there's a real term for it in our Career Pathways Institute, where we will take a group of students out to visit an employer. For example, in South Carolina, Vulcan Materials, a rock quarry. Most would suggest I didn't go to college to dig rock. Actually, you need a more comprehensive understanding of what Vulcan Materials is. It is the largest material supplier in the world. Everything we drive on, everything we look at, everything we build with comes out of that quarry. And so there are opportunities in accounting and management and IT and a host of other fields. And so by taking the students to that employer and exposing them to the full depth and breadth of the opportunities, we're able to expose them and engage them and interest them in pursuing opportunities. And so a comprehensive partnership from the outset, beginning again with the freshman experience, moving into field trips and internships and shadowing, supplementing that student's learning with comprehensive summer experiences, contributing in meaningful ways. We have employer advisory councils for all of our majors. It's important that employers give voice to the process and share with us what they believe our students are good at, what they know and are able to do when they graduate from our programs, and more importantly, if there are any knowledge gaps for our student body so that we can grow with the company and help to produce a highly skilled workforce coming out. And so I think the best partnerships are holistic, they're enduring, they are longitudinal. They are not one-offs. They are not simply coming to a career fair and interviewing our seniors, but really helping to develop the talent, providing learning opportunities for students, engagement opportunities, and exposure opportunities all along the way. And so to really respond in the simplest of forms to the question posed to my colleague, Hakim Lucas, how do companies engage with us? Just call me, right? I mean, we are very happy to engage and to partner and to develop a planned pathway for those employers with our students. And again, that is a 4-year process for us. It is not a one-off. It is not limited to the senior year.
Dr. Artis, thank you. What a wonderful perspective. And is there anyone else who would like to add to Dr.
Yes,
Artis's comments?
I'd like to add to her comments, and they're dead on. What we need are partnerships that are looking at the long term. It used to be that companies would show up to the career fair and say, you know, I want to hire your students. But what we're looking for today are partners that are going to invest in the educational mission and truly partner with us. And that's got to start early on, as Dr. Artis said. You know, from freshman year on, we want our students thinking about experiential learning opportunities, because we know that experiential learning, like those that Dr. Artis listed, internships, externships, job shadowing, all of that, including research, partnering with institutions and organizations and having students deepen their learning and understanding about research in the field. All of those help to build self-confidence, self-awareness for the students, so that they, when they're graduating, they become better employees. They understand the business environment. They understand what the career path looks like. And it helps them to have informed decisions as they go through the educational experience. It's a win-win for our universities and for our businesses and organizations, but it's got to start earlier. It can't be just a career fair. All of those that were on that list help to deepen learning and strengthen the skill sets for our students. So we're looking for true deep partnerships today where we can work together, and then the businesses have a chance to see students beyond just an interview, because that helps to deepen their understanding and awareness about the talent that our universities are providing. So I just want to echo and add, it's got to start earlier, and we see that it then creates deeper, lasting relationships.
Thank you so much, Dr. Breaux. I'm going to stay with you and ask this question. Most HBCUs understand the challenges facing first-generation college students. What would you share with business partners that might help them better understand and communicate with graduates to ensure they launch a successful career?
Well, I'm going to stay on the topic where we were, because it does come back to opening opportunities to our students, especially our first-generation students. At Bowie State University, about 36% of our students are first-generation students. Across the country, on college campuses, it's about 33% of first-gen. And they have a unique circumstance. They don't have the network typically that other students might have, because their parents have gone on to college and have built up a business and a network through their college experience. They often need that extra opportunity to introduce them to the larger context for what they're studying. And again, that helps them to make more informed decisions. So those internships and externships are a critical element to their learning. Back on our campus, we also have a number of programs that help build self-confidence starting day one. And that's what we do very, very well at our HBCUs, building up that confidence through leadership skills. And we come at learning from not a deficit model, where so many students, especially first-gen students, are told, well, maybe you can't do this, or maybe that's not for you. We start from meeting students where they are and telling them, and I hear often from my students, they've heard for the first time, you can do this. And coming at them with a strength model to help them identify their strengths, build on those strengths, and that's where the employers need to be. And when they provide those experiential learning opportunities, they're building up that self-confidence. All the students need is to have that opportunity, and they will rise to the occasion. Our first-gen students are resilient, they're motivated about their education, and that's something that's sometimes overlooked. Those strengths that they bring, the fact that they are first generation, had to navigate to the point of coming into our colleges and universities, tells you they're motivated, they're resilient, and they can do the work. But they do need that guidance around what I call essential skills. Some call it soft skills. I say they're essential skills. learning about the workplace environment, learning how to do networking, understanding the importance of all of that, and understanding how to move forward in an organization and become successful. So that's where industry and business partners can partner with us in that learning experience in introducing students to new opportunities. And back on our campus, we also do something that students value greatly, in addition to what happens in the career service centers in introducing them to simulated interviews and practice those skills. We do etiquette dinners and etiquette workshops, because so many of our students have not had to sit across the table and have a business conversation or talk about the politics or whatever hot topic of the day. And that in and of itself is a skill set, and learning how to conduct yourself in these forums that they have not learned previously. So those are just some of the ideas. I would offer that businesses need to understand where our students are, where they can partner with us on the campus through the learning experience. And then as the students go out for these experiential learning opportunities, they can help deepen those essential skills.
Thanks so much for that comprehensive response. And let's move to the next question. And I would pose this question to the entire panel. So I'd like each of you to respond to this question, please. What steps is your school undertaking to ensure students are work ready? Dr. Lucas.
First of all, I just love the conversation that was just happening, by the way. I have to say that. We all are sort of doing, I think, a lot of best practices in each one of our institutions and campuses have our unique niche areas. The preparation for us, for students to enter into workforce, particularly as leaders, begins with creating an environment of high expectations, of standards, and understanding what we require of first their parents, as their parents, if you will, enter into a co-parenting relationship with us, and how we need parents to engage, and of course, how we introduce circles of support through our faculty and administrators and student support services, and then how we link them to corporate communities through sometimes alumni first as mentors, and helping them to create pathways and an understanding on paper of who they want to be, and develop their, if you will, their plan for success that guides them through the educational journey that we hope never ends. We aim to be a lifelong educational partner. And so I can't wait till I get to say what Dr. Breaux says, that I have 35 grad programs and 14 certificate programs to go along with them. But that's the goal, right? To allow an entry point to be as early as possible. So going down chain, the educational pipeline, and starting with K-12 programs to high school, GED, prep, to associate's degrees, to bachelor's degrees, master's, doctorate, and professional education. And so the first thing in the preparation for the workforce is helping them to think critically about who they are. And I think as I love it, I studied transcendent leadership in the previous panel. There was a comment made about leading the self while you lead others. And that's what we're trying to do, to prepare students for that opportunity, but to also to let them know that they're never going to be by themselves, that every time they want to learn, anytime they want to hone and redefine their skill sets and enhance it in whatever way for whatever they will meet in the workforce, that we're here with them. To have a network through alumni that allows them to find their next co-founder of the next business, or the next investor into what they're doing, is what we also want to provide. But I love the conversation before, and I want to end my comment by going back to what my colleagues were saying. Look, you want a first-gen a student to work for you. You want that. You want somebody who is leading their family into a new understanding of what it means to participate in America. in a capitalistic society. If they can lead their families and going to college and doing something that's never been done before, they can lead your company to new insights, new innovations, new creativity, and new levels of profit. And so we often associate first gen with poverty. Well, wait, they may be resource restricted, but in no sense of the paradigm or the discussion or the matter at all can we say that first gen poverty and that they're behind in some form or fashion. So it's an exciting conversation about how people are starting up their lives, as many people start up economic industry, and what we do to help people start up and be entrepreneurial in their own lives, particularly with first gen students, is what America is about. Somebody had to be first and others had to follow, and we're training people on how to be first and to take their grit and to make their grit greatness and make that greatness shared with others.
Fantastic, Dr. Lucas. Thank you. Dr. Abdullah, would you like to respond to the same question? What steps is your school undertaking to ensure students are work ready?
I would like to talk to that. First, I want to acknowledge that the question, there are a lot of assumptions kind of built into that question. In terms of trying to make sure that our students are work ready, I think there's two parts of it. One, we want to make sure that they understand who they are and moving off into a new world. And that is something that I believe that HBCUs do better than anyone. As we help our young people, help our young at heart people, some of them aren't that young, to understand who they are, what their place in the world is, and what they want to do. And I think that's critical because it's a relationship. I think second, one of the things that we're trying to teach them to do is to make sure that they can recognize different types of work culture and be able to work well within them. One of the things that I think is, and it can be a little loaded the way some people ask it, is they talk about work culture and they talk about it in a very classic corporate culture sense. And the challenge nowadays is that many of our students are going out into very non-classic corporate worlds. They're going out into entrepreneurial worlds, and the skills that they need, the work cultures that exist, can be quite a bit different. I'll give you an example. Microsoft, they told us that our kids come ready for interview, and they're ready with the suit and tie, and they are overdressed. For the corporate world in Microsoft, they are very much overdressed and in some ways not prepared to be ready to work on day one. And so what we need to do, one, is to teach them how to be themselves, but also how to recognize different cultures, to be able to adapt quickly. Even at all of our institutions, we all share the same title, but I would argue all of our jobs and all of our cultures are quite a bit different. And so teaching our young people how to understand what culture is, how to adjust to it, how to know what their place in that culture is, and to move forward is really, I think, the key to what we do, and what we do, I think, better than many institutions. I want to pick up some of this too, because I thought what Aminta said was great, and then Dr. Lucas jumped in. I'm going to add just a small part of it, and that is making sure that we partner with people that understand our value. None of us on this panel look at our institutions and look at our young people as those who are less than, who need from someone else. When you look at hiring first-generation students or hiring students from our institutions, one, you're getting someone who is less expensive to recruit and to retain than someone from another country. You're getting someone who understands the market here in the United States, and more importantly, that critical market that exists between 18 and 25, particularly African-American, that have high spending habits. And so you've got talent that understands America, understands this portion of America, and recognizing partners who recognize that and partner with us to do that will have an incredible impact on their own bottom line. That's all I got.
Thank you so much, Dr. Abdullah. Wonderful response. I'll move to Dr. Artis on that question. What steps is your school undertaking to ensure students are work ready?
Sure. I think very, very similar to my colleagues. I'll avoid repetition, recognizing that you have so many more questions, but I think self-awareness is critically important and a point worth amplifying. Our students certainly have to have a very clear understanding and appreciation for who they are. At Benedict, the number of first-generation students is 74%. 74%. So 3 of every 4 students entering Benedict College is a first-generation college student. And so to the points that my colleagues made, their parents do not have cultural capital to hand down to them. They do not have connections they can imbue them with automatically. And so for us, it is about accumulating a set of experiences that empower and enable those students to be resilient and transcendent, depending on the kind of, as Dr. Abdullah said, work environment they go into. We know that the future of work is evolving rapidly, far more rapidly than perhaps our imaginations can prepare our institutions for, no matter how agile we are. And some things will always be critically important. Good, solid communication skills will always be critically important. The ability to think critically and solve problems is also going to remain an important skill, no matter how the work evolves in this country. And so I think back to the basics, and then we build on top of that at Benedict. So for example, in your freshman experience class, those students, one of their required assignments is a personal statement and a resume. Those are documents that will continue to evolve as the student evolves and gets them in the habit of selling themselves in a page or less. It helps them begin to articulate what they know and can do to go into a 21st century workforce. We also want to make sure that our students have 3 critical experiences. The first is a study abroad experience. The world of work is increasingly global. And so it is a priority for us at Benedict to continue to expand opportunities to study abroad. We've been stymied a bit this year because of COVID-19. We had quite a large number of students that were planning study abroad experiences for the summer, all of which have been derailed, unfortunately, given the international pandemic. And somehow, while people are being creative and strategic about virtual study abroad is not new. That's what we've all done if we didn't have money to travel, right? We got online and we learned about a new place or a culture or a people. And so that doesn't seem to be a good substitute for study abroad, but we'll continue to work on solving that problem. So that's one critical experience I think every college student really, really needs, particularly those who have not been exposed as fully as perhaps some others. Secondly, when we think about undergraduate research, now that can take a number of forms, qualitative, quantitative. It can be a group project. It can be teacher-student projects. We want our students to get used to working in teams, understanding a diversity of viewpoint, being able to solve problems. Again, that's that critical thinking in practice when they're engaged in undergraduate research. And third, again, a meaningful internship experience. Not making coffee and copies, though we understand there's value in the mailroom. We do want these students to have meaningful internship experiences that actually give them a set of experiences they can articulate to a resume as job experience, because they do not come with that cultural capital. Many of them will not have had significant work experiences prior to entering college. So we believe at Benedict, if we can stick with the basics, critical thinking, good communication, and all of those essential skills we all keep hearing about, and add to that, layer opportunities for undergraduate research, global learning experiences, and a meaningful internship, that student is very well prepared to hit the ground running in whatever field of endeavor they would choose.
Thank you for that insight, Dr. Artis. And finally, Dr. Breaux, would you add your thoughts on what steps your school is taking to ensure students are work ready?
Well, at Bowie State University, we are a liberal arts institution. We're very strong in the STEM areas and in other disciplines, but it goes back to the basics. Having those critical thinking skills. I would echo what Dr. Artis was saying. For us in the first year, we did something quite unique for universities. I go back to my comments about ensuring that students are looking at their strengths. We instituted for all of our first year students the Clifton Strengths Finders assessment, and required that all first year students take that assessment to begin helping them understand and recognize they do have strengths and what those strengths are. And from there, building on those strengths, again, twisting or turning the paradigm and shifting it to a strengths model, a model for learning, instead of what so many have heard through their upbringing is, I'm not sure you can do this, or no one ever saying to them, you can do all these things that are out there. You have to dream big and you can achieve those goals. So we instituted that. This is our second year of implementing the Clifton Strengths Finder, and it has been a wonderful asset for us as we help our students identify their goals, make those important career decisions, but then again, tying that back to the liberal arts model, because as career fields change, we don't know for next year or 5 years from now what the specific career that's emerging might be. We have to prepare our students not just for today, but as career fields change, evolve. There's so much with the technological advances that are impacting on every business and every industry. So we can't to succeed beyond Bowie State University, beyond the next 5 years, so that they can navigate and they'll have the basic skills. And then again, the entrepreneurial initiatives at Bowie State University have flourished because that's what employers are looking for, someone who has that nimble ability, that agility to navigate their workplaces as they go through, might be mergers and acquisitions, or the latest technology that's reshaping their business environment. Our students, we are focused on ensuring they have an entrepreneurial mindset. And that's more than teaching them how to create a new product or open a new business, but helping them to think innovatively, to continue providing value-added benefit back to those employers. So if the employers are going through a change, getting out ahead of that curve and thinking about how they reposition themselves in that organization to have value. So the entrepreneurial initiatives include an entrepreneurship academy, and that's available to every discipline, every level of student, whether they're undergrads or graduate students. And along those lines, we are building an entrepreneurship living learning community that's bridging the classroom learning to real world learning and making sure that education around this subject continues in the residence halls as well as in the classroom. And we're partnering with the Bowie Innovation Center, an incubation entity that's housed on our campus, to bring in community, business, SBAs, and working with our students, mentoring and bridging the learning. So we're not just looking today at what's happening in that classroom, but how we connect our students to the larger whole and helping them develop an entrepreneurial mindset.
Thank you so much, Dr. Breaux. Now, this question is for everyone. So, anyone, rather, what are your expectations of a corporate partner, i.e. donate unrestricted funds, donate toward capital improvements, fund scholarships, hire interns, hire employees, sit on your board, etc.? What are your true expectations?
All of the above.
Yes. Thank you. I think you gave
That was the easy one.
I'll start. I'll try to elaborate a little. I think for all of those, certainly. But I think the bigger picture for me is to not just invest in the students. For some corporate partners, they believe that hiring students and investing in internships is the only way to go. I think they have to also invest in the institution that is helping to build those students. And so whether we're talking about scholarships for existing students, whether we're talking about academic programs, serving on the board, capital funds, I think the real thing is to make a deeper investment in HBCUs. If you enjoy the product that comes out, don't just invest in the product when it comes out, but invest in the machinery, if you will, that does the work, the faculty, the staff, who do such great work to make sure that we're able to produce such high quality students. And that in the ways that you do that are all the ways that you lined out were appropriate. But the key is to make a deeper investment in the mechanism that helps to build great citizens.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to elaborate on that. Some of the best partnerships we have speak to those very same points. I think it was Dr. Lucas who was mentioning about the needs of our students. One of our partners that's in the grocery business has helped us open up a food pantry. We call it a nutrition lounge on the campus. Another partner is providing seminars on financial literacy and managing your debt and building your credit and helping students to understand the value of owning their own homes. These are issues facing our students. And our partners in this endeavor don't look at it as, well, that's something for you to handle on your campus with your students. They have stepped up and said, how can we help you to ensure that your students are successful? And helping us address these issues that you read about, you hear about over and over again. You open up the paper, and although our cost, we maintain a very low tuition rate, nonetheless, students across the country are struggling to afford college and to ensure that they're not graduating with debt. And so how do we help them, not just our university, but our business partners, help our students understand the bigger picture? Another corporate partner provides programming to support the development of women on our campus, faculty, staff, students, and alumni. And in turn, they also are doing some wonderful opportunities in providing scholarship dollars for our students. And another company has an intern who's on the campus and serves as an ambassador for their company, but is also working on leadership development. So these are examples for those who are watching. If you're wondering, well, how do you, really help us in a true partnership? These are just a few of the examples, and then I'll end with one other example. There's a company we're very proud to partner with called Saxby's, and I mentioned the Entrepreneurship Initiative. They have a business model where it's a coffee shop. It's more than that. They are training our students. We have a campus CEO running the full coffee operation, and that student who is the campus CEO is hiring other students. They've hired over 45 students on our campus to work, training them with essential skills, business skills, learning profit and loss statements. That is a partnership. So if you're scratching your heads and you're wondering out there, well, what are we talking about with partnerships? Those are just some of the examples where companies get it. They are truly partnering in the educational mission with our students.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to respond to that particular question?
I think our colleagues.
Okay, let's take a. Oh, well, thank you. Obviously, let's take one from an anonymous attendee. In a time when leadership at HBCUs is so critical, what advice would you give young executive level leaders that are aggressively seeking opportunities with the purpose of making meaningful contributions in the HBCU space?
So I want to take a stab at that one. I think the first is be prepared. This is not a popularity contest. This is not an occupation for the faint of heart. This is not easy, despite how Makola makes it look. This is very, very hard work. And you have to have the intestinal fortitude to make some tough decisions sometimes. Resource constrained environments that require its leaders, I think, to be very judicious in decision making. And so preparation is critically important. There are no shortcuts. These institutions are fragile, and as a result of that, absolutely deserve our best and brightest. And so those who know me know it is a bit of a pet peeve of mine when people apply and their credentials do not match up to the job they're applying for. I hear people say things like, well, it's just an HBCU. And my response to that generally is bite your tongue and swallow it. We are not just an HBCU. We are the HBCUs that built the Black middle class in this country. We are the HBCUs that continue to overproduce and outperform our predominantly white counterparts pound for pound when it comes to graduation rates of people of color and the quality of those graduates on the other side. And so I think that these institutions deserve our best and brightest. They deserve people with a strong work ethic. They deserve people who are well prepared academically, intellectually, socially, and emotionally for the rigors of managing under-resourced institutions where there's very little margin for error. We seldom have the benefit of large staffs and, more importantly, large budgets. And so if you are passionate about educating young people of color, if you are passionate about the mission of HBCUs in this country and the future of HBCUs in this country, I welcome you to the party, but be prepared for some very, very hard work and some very tough work. On the flip side, it's the most rewarding thing. I would do it for free. I would absolutely do this job for free. And so I don't want to discourage you by saying, in my mind, there's a tough standard for people who are fit to do this duty. But I will tell you that if you are among those chosen and called, there is no finer occupation than to lead an HBCU in this country.
Thank you, Dr. Artis. And I listened to you, Dr. Artis, earlier, so I'm going to take diversity out of the next question and say, have any businesses asked for your input in developing their inclusion plans, or what input would you give to companies developing their inclusion plans? And that's to all of our fine presidents.
I have had the opportunity to speak with companies, with CEOs regarding diversity and inclusion and Virginia State University. And I think the first thing I tell them by far is that, one, you have to understand the value proposition as it relates to your company, as it relates to diversity and inclusion. You have to know how you're going to monetize diversity and inclusion and how you see the value in it. And I can help you see the value, but that's not the most important thing. The companies have to see the value on their own. If they don't see the value, they will not make critical progress. Just to give you an idea, one of the examples I use in many of my speeches, there was a time when European players couldn't play in the NBA. And that was before the Dallas Mavericks figured out that they could win a championship by hiring Dirk Nowitzki to help their team win a championship. After that, everyone understood the value of having European players in the NBA. But somebody has to, in your company, in your organization, has to make the critical decision that they believe that their competitive advantage is directly related to diversity and inclusion. If they don't do that, there's really not much, I think, that we can do as partners, because if they don't recognize the value, then we can't add that value to them. And so that's, those are my 2 cents, and I will let my colleagues add theirs.
I too have been asked to give input directly to companies, also presented on various panels, and as part of the Board of Advisors, this is for the White House Initiative for HBCUs. This is what we discussed. And what I would say to every organization is it's got to start from the top. It has to be a valuing from the top and ensuring that the organization at all levels, up and down and across the organization, values diversity and, more importantly, inclusion, and making sure that our HBCUs are part of that strategy. So it can't be one-off that you're going to just show up on our campus and, check and, I went there. It's about changing a culture and a thinking about our HBCUs and the value they bring, but it has to be part of a larger strategic goal and part of the culture that you value diversity, you understand what we bring, and all of the value. As I said, for over 150 years, we've been here providing wonderful, talented graduates to the workplaces. Do your employees know that? When you go out to recruit, do your employees know that? Or are they just showing up and saying, well, I went through 50 people who dropped off their resume? That's not going to get you to a successful place. So it has to start from the top. It has to be part of a larger strategic plan about building culture, changing the culture and the thinking, the mindset. When you come to our institutions, you don't come from that deficit model thinking we are less than, but we are outstanding institutions that have a wonderful track record in producing amazing individuals to go into our workplaces. And we've been doing this a long time. So you need to raise awareness across your organizations about our HBCUs, but put it in a larger context around your diversity, inclusion, and making sure that you're anchoring and being strategic about how you're coming to our institutions and you're getting to know us, opening yourselves up, to all that we bring to the table.
I think there's also
Is there anyone else?
I think there's an important conversation around the business case. The reality is, just like for HBCUs, as we recruit students, I always say I'm not recruiting students, I'm recruiting graduates. We want to recruit students who have the capacity to persist and be successful and to graduate and to go into the workforce. And so as I would speak with employers, they need to be thinking long game as well. The cost of acquisition for talent is high. Making the investment on the front end to ensure the depth of training and development, to ensure that there is meaningful engagement with that employee in the environment. There are the social factors. Social isolation often occurs if you are the only one. If the employer will take seriously its commitment to inclusion and engagement of that employee, I think the payoff will be grand in the end. It's an upfront investment, but one that will pay off in spades. And I think as you begin to develop a deeper pool, employers will also see value in that. And so I think my colleagues have really hit the nail on the head in terms of top down, big picture, part of a strategic direction for the company. I think it's also just good common sense, right? Reducing it to its essence. It is worth it for you to make the investment and recognize that the dividends that that investment will pay for your company are quite significant.
Thank you, Dr. Artis. It looks like we've reached the end of our time. Thank you to each of our HBCU presidents for spending time today to share your viewpoints with us. There have certainly been some valuable input exchanged by both school and business leaders. We'll now take a 30-minute break and return at 1 o'clock for the presentation of the 2020 LEAD Awards. We hope you'll join us to celebrate leaders in the HBCU community. Recognition and celebration is even more important now than ever.